It was 1941, and this was a real scene that took place on the Eastern Front between Germany and the Soviet Union. A squad of German soldiers had stopped a group of women and children. They took away the young and beautiful women, while the elderly were executed on the spot, and even the children were not spared. One German soldier gestured for a young boy to open his mouth, but the terrified boy didn't understand what he meant. The soldier stepped forward, forced the boy's mouth open, and shoved the cold barrel of his gun inside. Without hesitation, the ruthless German soldier pulled the trigger. All of this was seen from the woods by Soviet soldiers hiding nearby. Their commander, Adi, was filled with rage and heartbreak. He wanted to charge out and kill the Germans, but his comrade held him back tightly. This was German-controlled territory. If they made a move now, they would alert nearby enemy forces, and none of them would make it out alive. A few unarmed villagers had become victims of German bullets in mere moments. The young and beautiful Soviet women who remained were taken away like trophies, to be sent to Berlin. On June 22, 1941, when the war between Germany and the Soviet Union broke out, Captain Adi's 56th Infantry Division was stationed near the Belarusian border. There, they were surrounded and attacked by 3 German infantry divisions. The 56th Division was on the brink of total annihilation. Lieutenant Adi rushed to the front command post, where his commander ordered him to lead a small squad to the area near Borodino to cover the retreat of the 184th Infantry Regiment. They had to hold off the Germans for at least one full day. Before he left, the commander told Adi that if the regiment command was destroyed, he should find his own way out. By June 26, the 184th Regiment had successfully broken through the encirclement, but Adi and his 8 surviving comrades didn't make it in time. The battlefield was littered with bodies, the ground soaked with blood. It was clear the Germans had broken through the Soviet line, and this area was now under German control. Suddenly, gunfire echoed from a distance, and the men quickly ran into the woods. As the sounds of battle faded, they stopped to rest briefly in the forest. Then Adi noticed a small house not far away. It looked safe. He approached it carefully and found only an old woman inside. Adi decided they could take a short rest there. When the old woman saw they were Soviet soldiers, she immediately welcomed them in. Kind-hearted, she offered them potatoes and even gave them some old clothes they could use. Adi was deeply grateful, but then one soldier pulled back a curtain and was startled to see several corpses lying in the next room. He stumbled backward in shock. In the confusion, another soldier accidentally left behind a cap badge on the table. From the old woman's trembling words, they learned that the bodies were her family. All of them had been killed by the Germans. Because she was old and weak, she hadn't been able to bury them, so their remains had stayed inside the house. Hearing her story, Adi was overwhelmed with emotion. He immediately ordered his men to help bury her loved ones. Afterward, Adi thanked the old woman and prepared to leave. Just then, the sound of engines came from outside. They quickly escaped through the back door. A German patrol was approaching the house. Before they left, the old woman insisted they take more potatoes with them. Moments later, the Germans burst into the house. They began searching every corner. One of them found potato peels on the table and a red army cap badge that had been left behind. The soldier handed it to his officer, who immediately realized that Soviet soldiers had been hiding there. The old woman trembled in terror. The German officer gave a subtle signal to his man and then turned to leave. The soldier understood at once. He raised his weapon and shot the old woman dead. Adi and his squad were now hiding in the woods again. When they saw no Germans following, they stopped to rest on a small slope. Adi told his men to stay there while he went ahead to scout. Not long after, he came across a few wooden cabins, and as he approached, he saw several Soviet soldiers' bodies lying beside them. At that moment, a German soldier quietly approached, but the sound of a snapping branch alerted Adi. He instantly pulled out a grenade and threw it toward the noise, then took the chance to run. The explosion alarmed several Germans inside the cabin, and they released a military dog to chase him down. In the chaos, Adi was knocked to the ground by the dog, both of them rolling down a slope. He quickly drew his knife and, with 2 swift strikes, killed the animal. But just as he stood up, a German soldier aimed a gun at his back. Adi pretended to surrender, raising his hands, then suddenly spun around and tackled the soldier to the ground. Though he had the man pinned, strangling him was difficult, and the desperate German gouged at Adi's eyes, nearly blinding him. Just then, Adi's hand brushed against a submachine gun lying on the ground. He grabbed it and fired a burst into the soldier's side. After taking down 2 Germans, Adi, bloodied but alive, rushed back to rejoin his men, and together they fled deeper into the forest. Exhausted, the squad stopped to catch their breath. One soldier took off his boots to treat his wounds, but before they could rest, a group of German soldiers caught up to them. The men had no choice but to run again. The wounded soldier, unable to get his boots back on in time, was shot down as soon as he stood up. Adi looked back and saw his comrade collapse. He wanted to go back and save him, but with more enemies closing in, he had to think of the others' safety and kept running. They ran desperately through the woods until they reached a swamp. Trapped between the swamp and the pursuing Germans, Adi suddenly caught sight of an old man in the distance, motioning for them to go forward. Trusting the vision, he led his man, using sticks for balance, and together they stepped into the swamp, pushing through the muck with all their strength. They finally made it across, while the Germans on the opposite side stopped and dared not follow. Having escaped, Adi and his men finally exhaled in relief. After a short rest, they pressed onward, still hoping to find a way out of enemy territory. Not long after entering the next stretch of forest, they stumbled upon the horrific massacre, the same brutal scene from the beginning. Adi saw the Germans committing their atrocities and wanted to rush forward and kill them all, but his comrades restrained him. This was still German-occupied territory. If they revealed themselves, they'd be surrounded and wiped out. The squad quietly withdrew and continued through the forest. Before long, they saw several German soldiers trying to repair a broken-down truck. Seeing that the Germans were few in number, Adi decided to lead a surprise attack. Before the enemy could react, the Soviets struck and wiped them out completely. As they searched the truck, one soldier found a young German soldier hiding inside and dragged him out to Adi. The frightened young man pulled a photo of his mother from his pocket and pleaded for his life. But Adi, still burning with anger after witnessing the Germans' earlier brutality, raised his gun and shot him without hesitation. When the squad reached the edge of the woods, they saw a small village ahead. Adi decided they would rest there for the night. He ordered one man to disguise himself as a civilian and scout the area first. The soldier took off his uniform, put on the old clothes the kind woman had given them before, and carried a grenade for protection. He cautiously circled the village and, seeing nothing suspicious, walked in casually. But as soon as he entered, 3 German patrolmen appeared. Trying to stay calm, the soldier kept walking, but the Germans suddenly opened fire. He was hit in the leg and fell to the ground. Hearing the gunfire, Adi and the others rushed to help. The wounded soldier tried to crawl away, but the Germans chased him into a courtyard, forcing him to collapse in exhaustion. Seeing the Germans closing in, he pulled out his grenade, ready to take them down with him. More German troops arrived upon hearing the commotion, but so did Adi's squad. Without fear, they charged forward to avenge their fallen comrade. The Germans were caught completely off guard and were wiped out in moments. The villagers, who had been hiding, realized their rescuers were Soviet soldiers and came out of their homes to welcome them. After days of running and fighting, Adi's squad finally had a chance to rest. The next day, the village elder led them deep into the forest, where they reunited with another Soviet squad that had been separated. The other group's leader, Captain Zalbek, was also of Asian descent from the same homeland as Adi. Together, they formed an anti-German guerrilla unit in the forest, building a camp, seizing German weapons, and even acquiring German uniforms. Most of the partisans were local villagers, so the group was a mix of people from different backgrounds. But Adi decided to stay and fight alongside them. With the two groups merged, the guerrilla force grew stronger and more organized. But word of their activities soon reached the German command. There was a traitor among them. The German officer in charge was furious. He summoned the local security commander and ordered him to publicly execute captured partisans in the village the next day as a warning. That night, a young member of the guerrilla unit sneaked into German-occupied territory and overheard the security commander's plan. Terrified, he rushed back to report everything to Adi. Later that evening, another scout returned from the village and confirmed that the information was true. To rescue the captured guerrilla fighters and strike back at the Germans, Adi came up with a flawless plan. The next day, several captured partisans were brought before the gallows for a public execution. The local security commander stood beside them, warning the villagers that this was the fate of anyone who dared to join the resistance. Just then, several guerrilla fighters disguised as German soldiers arrived in horse-drawn wagons. Pretending to escort a group of captured Soviet prisoners, they reported to the officer in charge, saying their commander had ordered them to bring the prisoners here to be executed together. A German soldier walked over to inspect the wagon, and the disguised partisans tensed immediately, ready to fight at any moment. The German officer, suspicious, demanded to know their unit number. Before anyone could respond, the soldier lifted the canvas on the wagon and discovered crates of weapons hidden inside. The plan had been exposed. The attack had to begin early. The guerrillas acted fast, using their superior numbers to take control of the situation. Within moments, the Germans were overwhelmed, and the few survivors dropped their weapons and surrendered. Word of the ambush quickly reached German headquarters. The furious German commander immediately ordered an intensified sweep of the surrounding forests to eliminate all partisan forces. The order was brutally effective. Short on food, 2 guerrilla fighters disobeyed orders and sneaked into a nearby farmhouse to eat. As they devoured their stolen meal, they suddenly heard German voices outside. They had been surrounded. Not wanting to endanger the mother and her 6 children inside, the 2 men surrendered. The prisoners were locked in a cell, and after a while, one of them was taken away by the guards. Moments later, sounds of fighting erupted outside. The remaining prisoner rushed to the door, but the noise suddenly stopped. When he finally stepped out, he found a guard lying dead. Believing his comrade had killed the guard and escaped, he didn't think twice. He grabbed the chance to flee, but it was all part of a German trap. They had staged the escape, knowing he would lead them straight to the partisans' hidden camp. As soon as the man returned to camp, a large German force followed close behind. He was gunned down instantly, and then the Germans opened fire with mortars, bombarding the entire camp. Explosions tore through the forest as German troops stormed in, and a fierce battle broke out. Outnumbered and outgunned, Adi ordered a retreat. They would fight while falling back. The guerrillas managed to escape into the dense woods, but their losses were devastating. Many brave fighters lay dead in pools of blood, never to rise again. Led by the village elder, the survivors eventually reached another Soviet unit and were given a brief chance to rest. One day, a soldier brought back a lost young girl. From her trembling words, they learned she had escaped from the Germans. Her mother had hidden an important message in her braid. A female fighter gently untied the small cloth strip woven into the girl's hair, revealing the message. The Germans were planning to transport a group of Soviet girls to Berlin. After a quick discussion, everyone agreed they had to rescue the girls, but there was still a traitor among them. The spy immediately reported their plan to the German commander. Upon hearing the news, the German officer decided to turn it to his advantage and lay a trap to lure the partisans out. The next day, a group of captured Soviet girls was brought to the train station, supposedly to be sent to Berlin. From the nearby forest, the guerrillas watched closely, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the girls were herded into the train cars, the partisans opened fire from the shadows. Launching their rescue mission, they swiftly eliminated several German guards and led the girls to safety. But Adi felt uneasy. The rescue had gone far too smoothly. Something wasn't right. He decided to split up, taking one comrade with him to draw German attention away from the others. And just as he suspected, the Germans had been watching all along. The German commander immediately recognized Adi as the partisan leader and decided to turn the pursuit into a deadly hunt. He ordered his troops to split into 3 squads to drive Adi and his companion into a trap. The soldiers blew their whistles, signaling one another as they closed in from 3 directions, forcing the 2 men into a deadly encirclement. Adi and his comrade had no choice but to flee in one direction, unaware that the German commander and his deputy were already waiting ahead. The soldier running in front was hit by a bullet and collapsed. Adi quickly dragged him behind a tree for cover, and at the same time spotted the German position. He pulled out a grenade, waited for the right moment, and hurled it toward the enemy. As the explosion rang out, the 2 men took the chance to run. They finally managed to shake off their pursuers, but Adi's comrade was too badly wounded to survive. Adi looked down at his fallen brother in arms, his face filled with sorrow and helplessness. After burying his comrade, Adi returned to camp, but something didn't feel right. He suspected that a traitor within the group had leaked their rescue plan. He immediately ordered the entire camp to relocate. During the move, Adi noticed that one soldier carrying an accordion kept looking around nervously, his behavior highly suspicious. Adi quietly followed him, then called Zalbek and another fighter to block his path. When questioned, the man grew tense, clutching the accordion tightly to his chest. Adi's suspicion deepened, and he ordered Zalbek to inspect the instrument. Panicking, the man suddenly attacked. In the struggle, he stumbled backward into a tree stump. A sharp branch pierced his neck, killing him instantly. When Zalbek opened the accordion, he found a hidden miniature German radio inside, confirming Adi's fears. At the same time, a large German armored division was rapidly assembling, preparing to annihilate the guerrilla forces once and for all. Upon receiving the news, the Soviet partisans held an emergency meeting. After careful discussion, they decided to strike back by destroying the key bridge the German armor needed to cross and to capture the German commander alive. Under cover of darkness, Adi led his men to scout the German field headquarters. That night, after surveying the area, his squad slipped silently into the river and planted explosives beneath the bridge. At dawn, the German commander arrived with several officers for a morning walk along the riverbank. The Soviet fighters were already hidden nearby, waiting for the signal. When the guerrilla team on the hill flashed the green light, Adi gave the order. He charged straight at the German commander and shoved him into the river. The explosion that followed shattered the bridge, and in the chaos, the Soviets successfully captured the German commander. With their prisoner in tow, they began to retreat, but waves of German troops closed in behind them. The guerrilla reinforcements arrived just in time, and fierce fighting erupted throughout the forests. Even the women took up rifles and joined the battle, but the Germans kept advancing. The partisans were outnumbered and outgunned, and more of them fell with each passing minute. Adi ran out of ammunition as the enemy drew closer. He grabbed his pistol and used his last few bullets to fight to the end. He was hit several times and fell to the ground. In a haze between life and death, he saw his wife working in the fields, and his 2 children running joyfully toward him, the vision of the home he had longed for. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying on a stretcher, being carried to safety by his surviving comrades. After recovering from his wounds, Adi continued to lead his men in guerrilla warfare until the end of World War II, and that's where the film ends. This is a 2022 Kazakh war drama based on true events from the summer of 1941. It tells the story of Adi, Kazakhstan's Minister of Education, writer, and national figure in his fight on the Soviet front during the Great Patriotic War. Adi was of Kazakh descent. After the war ended in 1945, he returned home and later served as Kazakhstan's Minister of Education, Secretary of the Soviet Writers' Union, and earned a PhD in linguistics. He passed away on November 4, 1993. I'm a film enthusiast. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.